Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority Business Board meeting today on the 8th of July. I'd like to welcome you to this meeting, and I'm pleased to welcome members of the press and public who would like to join the virtual meeting online. If members experience any technical difficulties during the meeting, as always, please refresh your connection in the first instance. If it becomes apparent that we've lost you altogether and are no longer quorate, it may be necessary to adjourn the meeting, but I sincerely hope we can avoid that. So to start with, I'd like to just run through apologies for absence, and we'll start by taking a roll call of members of the business board in alphabetical order who are present for this record. So I'm going to start with Sam Bakri.
Present.
Thank you, Sam. Katie Davis. Mike Hurd.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike. Emma Garfield.
Yes, here.
Hi, Emma. Charlotte Horrobin.
Yes, here.
Hi, Charlotte. Mayor Dr. Nick Johnson.
Present, Chair.
Thank you, sir. Tim Jones.
Present, Chairman.
Araminta Ledger. I don't believe it's with us just yet. Nitin Patel.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nitin. Barnaby Perks.
Yeah, I'm here.
Councillor Anna Smith.
Here, present.
Thank you, Councillor. Rebecca Stevens.
Here.
Andy Williams.
I'm here, Chair.
And I'm going to go back up the list because I believe I can see Araminta Ledger is now here, just to confirm.
Present.
Good to see you. Thank you. And myself, Al Kingsley. Can I confirm if there are any apologies for absence, please? I don't believe we've received any.
No, Chair, we haven't received any apologies. I'll keep an eye out for Katie when she turns up, if she turns up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we will move on then to declarations of interest. So this is an opportunity to declare pecuniary interests or any other conflicts of interest you may have. Do members have any conflicts they wish to declare with the topics today? And I don't see any hands, so we'll take that as a no. So moving on, we are asked to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 13th of May 2024. Can I ask whether any member disagrees with the accuracy of the minutes? No. Okay, I see no objections, so we will take that as carried. Can I check, do officers have any further updates to report on the action log at this point?
No further updates, Chair. What I do want to just let you know is that most of the actions are now closed. I think there's only a couple there which are still ongoing. And that's mainly around impact assessments in terms of our investments, which I know finance colleagues are looking at. And then there's that little bit of work that we've got to do around mapping out the landscape in terms of our strategic partnerships and how they relate to the business board. So that's two that are going to be rolling over for next board.
Okay, thank you, Domenico. We will move on to item 4, which is the business board role profiles that you will have seen from the pack. Item 4 is for the approval of the business board member role profiles. Domenico Cirillo, business programs and business board manager, is going to present those reports. So over to you, Dom.
Thank you, Chair. So this final piece of work is part of the governance review and the governance process work that we've been doing over the last kind of 5 to 6 months, a bit longer than that. As part of the transition over to what the business board is now, effectively an advisory board rather than the former functions. We've updated all the terms of reference and the kind of generic constitution in terms of the combined authority. But the one missing piece of that was setting out exactly what was expected of business board members in terms of their role on the business board, but also the kind of role they're expected to play in terms of representing on the thematic committees, when they're taking the lead role in terms of sectors and the interactions between, obviously, wider stakeholders and our subgroups. So this document is essentially that. It builds upon like I said, builds upon the kind of generic kind of node and principles that we previously used in terms of setting out what a business board member should act like or operate like in terms of expectations. So this one, as you would have seen, as was circulated, it gives a little bit more details in terms of responsibilities, the roles, the purpose of why you're doing it, the frequency of meetings, and in terms of what's expected for two-way communication channels to make sure that we are completing that kind of feedback loop and input functions that's expected of us. So I won't go through the actual document itself because I think members have had an opportunity to read through that. But happy to take any questions or any suggested amendments, or if we're happy to accept it as it's presented. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Domenico. I see Rebecca would like to raise her view.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's a little bit pedantic, but the last section talks about time commitment and says that business board members should spend at least 2 days a month on the role. And then it goes on to talk about there being 12 meetings a year. And then the next line talks about, therefore, an annual minimum commitment of 36 hours a year. And I just think that kind of sends the wrong message that actually you can be a business board member and only work 36 hours in an entire year and do the bare minimum by just turning up to the meetings. And I'm just going to suggest we get rid of that line.
I totally understand where you're coming from on that one. It's just, it was trying to kind of articulate or to set out, okay, well, we know that you're going to have 6 formal meetings, 6 informal meetings, and thematic committees as a kind of a bare minimum. And it was whether we put a time allocation to that or not, given that meetings can last up to, anything up to 3 hours. So I will revise that sentence. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Let's just get some feedback from Andy and then we can come to a consensus, hopefully.
Thank you.
And
I was going to go for a similar pedantic point. The 6 times committee meetings annual, but we also have inordinate number of informal meetings and discussions on all sorts of topics in the transport committee. So I would put at the end there, committee meetings annually and associated briefings. But I don't think we should put a time on it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Mayor Nick.
It's just to echo the point. I think it's well recognised that business board members are always going above and beyond the level that you actually think. We don't need to write it down. And apart from anything else, and I can be corrected here by the support for the committee, is that we are now recording who goes to meetings in the public domain, both at board and at thematic committees. So actually how much you attend, and I'm not ever suggesting that we should be keeping a register, is actually sort of there for the public consumption. So we don't need to state it so much within the actual job description. If Alison wants to confirm that, so that people are aware that, attendance is actually recorded.
Yeah, I can confirm that, Mayor. We're recording as of the start of this municipal year. Anybody can look on the website and there is attendance figures for all the public meetings. So they're all on there.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you both. Are there any other points anybody wishes to raise?
Just one thing. I just happened to notice there isn't really any sort of defined role of what a lead member does.
In the context of, in this, Mike, you mean in terms of within the business board?
Yes, so it says the nominated business board lead members and gives the list, which is fine, but doesn't. I can't remember ever seeing anything which actually says that there is a particular responsibility of a lead member.
I think that is a fairly pedantic point to make. We used slightly different terminology, although we have nominated people for different thematic committees. Nick, were you wanting to?
Yeah, just to help you, Chair. Obviously, just Mike, just for the clarification, there are lead members on the board, and they do have specific job descriptions, such as a lead member for Environment and Sustainable Committees. We have a lead member for Transport who is joining us today. That's our Anna Smith. But and it's arguably for good governance, although it's maybe creating work for the sake of it. We, as lead members within the business board, you could actually have specific job descriptions. It's a pretty generic description, but it's something that you can refer back to. We needed it in terms of the the board, because like it is within the gift of the mayor to create a role, which I did for, say, Councillor Bowden as a lead member for public health, in the same way we did a lead member for devolution, which was created for Councillor Comboy, and it was just helpful to kind of clarify the point. I could make a suggestion. It's entirely up to you, Chair. If actually a more to make it equivalent to the sort of level that we have at the board, then it would be something that officers could, I think, provide quite quickly.
Thank you, Nick. I think that Mike's point is well made, but we often have terminology that makes perfect sense within one structure and then within the business board might confuse. So it makes sense to have a bit of clarity and definition on that, just as we may have this conversation and have clarity ourselves, but given that frankly the year's worth plus journey reviewing and restructuring governance and oversight, which has been an incredibly thorough and I believe positive process for the business board, we do need to be mindful that somebody else might pick up these documents in 2 or 3 years' time and not have the benefit of the conversations or the thought process in advance. So it would seem sensible to signpost that. I'm going to do by a reverse show of hands. Does anybody disagree with the suggestion about amending the time commitment statement that's been raised by Rebecca and Andy? No, good. So I think there's a consensus there. So I'm going to just take this item to its conclusion by just asking then, from what's been said, there seems to be a consensus in support of the recommendation. Can I ask if anyone disagrees with this business board role profiles recommendation being taken forward to raise their hand? No. Okay, then we will take that as a as approved and move forward for you, Dom. Thank you for presenting that.
Thank you, Chair.
Item 5 is a very brief one, verbal update from the chair on the combined authority forward plan. You'll notice there's not an item specifically in the pack for that, but that's our restatement as always, that if there are any topics that we believe should be brought forward in our forward planning, please refer those to Domenico or our officers. Any items that you feel at the end of this conversation perhaps have warranted us taking a deeper dive or getting involved in, then please do make sure that you share those forward. Agenda item 6, business board chairs update. In light of the last comment, in terms of tracking our number of hours, I was busy looking at my list thinking, shall I start adding some hours to this? But I won't. But in terms of an update, you know, I'm very aware that with our new membership, we've got a lot of very active members. I think some of the highlights for me over the last period since our last business board meeting that we had online was looking at connections across our region. Attended an excellent event organised by Charlotte and the Cambridgeshire Chambers of Commerce in Peterborough, where there's an opportunity to wear my CPCA business board hat and talk about skills, economic outlook in our region, opportunities for growth. Had opportunity to meet with the Growth Hub team, and we'll all be aware that that's part of our offer now that we're looking to extend. Had the opportunity to meet with Claire Paul from the skills side before her departure, talking more about the business board and skills committee connectivity, which I think is really important. Alongside regular catch-ups with the mayor, I've had a number of one-to-one meetings around our shared ambition work. I know there was another meeting, collaborative this morning, but I've had some one-to-one conversations around that, and that project is moving forward in a very positive way. I've met with a number of different stakeholder representatives, met with the team for Form the Future, which is something that I'm really keen could be developed across our entire region. And I know there are conversations with officers there looking at opportunities of how that might be supported. Field trips, out meeting organisations. The mayor, myself and the CPCA CEO visited ZPods and a manufacturer in Peterborough, looking at sustainable housing and opportunities of a business that's growing in our region. Met with Mark Roberts and the team at Cambridge Regional College, talking about broader skills offer, and again, thinking about that and regional connectivity that we have. I am also a Department for Business and Trade export champion, so I met with Stuart Gibbons, based in Huntingdon, who's a long-standing ambassador for this region, looking at closer collaboration and how that could feed into some of our opportunities. Met with the Connecting Cambridgeshire Digital Connectivity Strategy Governance Review process. Goodness, that's a mouthful, but all these things are about making sure that we're involved in the conversation. Wearing my role represented the CPCA, also attended the Oxford to Cambridge Pan Regional Partnership Board meeting in the last few weeks. And some of those themes come together where I've also spoken to officers about continued work on shaping a strategic plan that would support innovation with SMEs across the arc of our region. And of course, that links in with export, with chambers and SMEs and skills and provision from the other projects that we've supported in the region. And whilst it's taken some time, I sincerely hope that's something that we will be able to bring to the business board for discussion at our next update meeting in advance of our next formal business board meeting. Suffice to say, it has been a very busy period, but a very productive period. And now that we are the other side of national elections, I suspect that none of us want to be counting the number of hours that we have on the go at the moment, although it's all positive and opportunities. It's certainly a busy time. And I would just like to extend my thanks to officers who continue to support, whether it's in engagement with different press releases and articles, or helping facilitate visits and trips to different organisations. I'm going to move on to the next topic, which will be far more interesting, I have no doubts, which is the feedback from our thematic committees, again, tying in with our business board summary we've just heard in terms of some of our roles. And I'm very pleased that we have a number of stakeholders now from the board on some of the key thematic committees. So I'm going to kick off with the Skills and Employment Committee, which met on Monday, the 17th of June. And I'm going to ask Charlotte and Katie to provide any insights to the business board from that committee, please.
Thank you, Al. So we actually met with a committee induction just beforehand, and I want to mention that just because I think it was welcomed by all members of the committee just to meet the CPCA skills team in greater depth. So thank you for the time spent organising that. We were presented with the wider outcomes paper, which shone a great positive light on CPCA, looking at the measure of the impact of training, not just numbers for numbers' sakes, but actually what is the impact that we're delivering to our local community, business and economic growth. And actually CPCA is seen very progressive in this arena of work when compared to research and programmes all around the world. So I think that's something that we should celebrate. We also reviewed the adult education budget and FCFJ funding, which will bring about some flexibility. So that was reviewed and approved. We spent a little bit of time discussing some concerning trends that we're seeing through DWP data. We should take it with a little bit of a pinch of salt, but we definitely know that we have got this unemployment due to in certain inactive areas of the workforce, namely around long-term sickness. And we are seeing some trends in Cambridge that haven't been seen before. So whilst we were advised to sort of digest the data with caution, I do think it's pertinent that we continue to look at those inactive individuals very, very closely. We were also presented with the budget and future work programme, and that was all approved. And also probably very much worthwhile just highlighting the thanks to Claire Paul as she departs and Andrea has joined the team. But I know that all members of the committee were extremely grateful for the time that Claire has spent within the CPCA team. So that's my update on behalf of Employment and Skills, Al.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. I appreciate that. Just one question on that. One of the things that's been growing over recent years has been the provider capacity for delivering on the adult education budget. How is that continuing to evolve? Was there any discussion around that?
I think at the moment, it's probably fair to say that the team are in a period of flux, of course, new leadership coming through, and also just going through a period of that procurement cycle, which I know at the time was really occupying Claire and the team. So I could probably report a clearer picture back at the next meeting, Al. But I know the team were very much kind of hands to the grindstone, just trying to get through what is a very important process right now.
That's really helpful, Charlotte. And as always, I think I'm probably a meeting too early for that question, so I apologise. But it's good to know that the team are heavily engaged on that one. So thank you. I'm going to move, unless there are any questions for Charlotte. Don't see any hands, to the Environment and Sustainable Communities Committee that met on the 19th of June. And I know Tim and Emma representatives there, if any of them would like to provide an update.
Thank you, Chair. Do you mind if I go first, Emma? I'm happy to.
Yeah, no, far away. I'll fill in afterwards.
Good. You covered the bits I missed. The first thing was it was an in-person meeting. It was great to meet in the terrace room at the ARU in Peterborough. First time I've been in there, and that's a very impressive bit of architecture which has been commissioned. The content of the meeting was quite short because of restrictions pre-election, but nevertheless it touched on the Waterbeach renewable energy resource and the notion of utilising electricity from there for refuse vehicles. Costs of the vehicles was one of the issues discussed, as was range. We talked particularly about the region's climate contribution, carbon contribution to climate change, and the need to assess that carefully for the region as a whole. The Mayor interestingly drew our attention to flood risk, particularly identified in the middle level Commissioner's report, which highlighted that the pumps have been at maximum capacity on several occasions during the last winter, and that there's a need to make that make the public aware of that. It's just that we all are very conscious of the capacity of the pumps and where we live geographically in the low level. A key takeaway was that the committee wants the combined authority to delegate authority to it to draft a local nature recovery strategy, which will be for public consultation. There are some time limits on that. It needs to be out by March 25th, so there's some urgency about this. But this particular strategy and consultation will look at areas such as biodiversity, areas for enhancement, proposals for improvement, and so on. And it will also importantly integrate with planning policy. And that rather tied in with a separate item which arose, which was that we need to ensure parity between economic and environmental priorities as far as the committee is concerned. I think the last thing I took away was we had a budget and finance report. The Rural Communities Energy Fund was of particular interest, and there's going to be an update on that at the July meeting. So, Emma, what have I missed?
I think you covered everything on my list, Tim. So, no, thank you very much. Made my job very easy. Yeah, as I said, it was great. It was great to attend the meeting in person, to meet members of the committee, and that was actually followed on by an induction event as well, which certainly I can speak for hopefully the new members on the business board that was whilst there was limited attendance due to the sort of upcoming election, it was actually very helpful in terms of helping us to get a more thorough understanding of the CPCA and its wider activities, including the other committees as well. So no, thank you for that.
Thank you, Emma, and thank you, Tim. Really appreciate that update. And then we also have the Transport and Infrastructure Committee also met on the 26th of June. And we have Rebecca and Andy, who hopefully can provide us with an update on any key points from that committee.
Andy wasn't able to attend this meeting, so it's just me, I'm afraid. Very interesting meeting. Given the warning that Anna gave us at the beginning that due to the election, we weren't to be overly political. I think it was the most political meeting I've ever been at. And kudos to Anna for steering her way and our way through it, because I can see that wasn't an easy job. But in terms of the content, the vast majority of the items were put off until the July meeting because of the election. So some of the things that we've talked about before and that were due to come, like, for example, Wisbech Rail and buses, have all gone off. The sort of two main items that did go ahead was an update on the electric vehicle strategy and some discussion around a survey that's been done. And we did have a vote on the March area transport study, which was the full business case and the request to draw down £7 million to progress that. But that was not agreed to go forward to board. But I suspect may come back to a future meeting. I think the other thing that would be worth mentioning, although not big parts of that committee, was that there was reference to England's Economic Heartland transport investment brochures, which I think have been sent to everybody for comment, and really kind of comes on the back of the conversation we had around UK REEF and just making sure that we're aligned on all these things and they're all saying the same things and we have the same priorities in each of these investment brochures. And the digital connectivity strategy, which work is beginning on for the current strategy is due to complete, and the new strategy is 2025 to 29, and future funding around that. So it might be one that the business board has a discussion about in a future informal meeting, just to try and shape that a bit more from a economic growth perspective. I think that's it.
Thank you. Well done for making it through that meeting, by the sounds to all those who attended.
I can see on my little screen of squares and faces. Right at the top is Mayor Nick, and when I said that, I could see him laughing. So I know exactly what he means. I can't see Anna, but I'm sure she's making a face as well.
We won't dwell on that. What I was going to ask you, Rebecca, was, given your own experience, are you and other members of the committee being involved in the discussions around the digital connectivity strategy?
It is due to come back to the next meeting. We're not involved in a informal way at the moment, although the strategy isn't coming back to the meeting for approval, it's coming back for discussion. So there will be an opportunity then to feed in. That's why I suggested maybe it would be worth trying to get Jaren along to an informal business board committee meeting. I mean, I think the direction of travel is fairly clear, and it is enhanced, if you like, an enhancement of what has been the strategy for some time. But I think it's important to get that business and economic view very clearly through it. And I think myself and Andy have commented several times in the meeting around it, because it is so vital.
Can we, I'm going to jump to Anna in a second, but can I just ask Domenico to perhaps take a note of that in terms of forward planning for our next informal business board meeting as a potential conversation point, given Rebecca's comments on that. And Rebecca, thank you for your update from the committee. Let me jump to Anna.
Yeah, I'm not going to go over a large amount of the contents of the committee again, but I think what I would say is we have drawn a really important learning point around substitute members and ensuring that they are up to speed on the decision-making process and the views of their constituent councils on the decisions that are going to be made. And I think that's a really key learning point. So certainly one of the things I'll be doing as chair, and that I'll be encouraging other chairs to do, is to reach out both to the substitute member and to the full member in advance when we know that's happening, to make sure that everybody is up to speed. Because if substitute members turn up and they're not briefed, then we got a really clear indication of what can happen there. So I think that's a really important learning point for us all structurally moving forward.
Thank you, Anna. Appreciate that clarification, and sounds like definitely a good learning point to take away on that one. Can I ask if any members have any questions for the representatives from the thematic committees? No? Okay, well, I'll pass on my thanks to all those who shared updates. This is one of the cornerstones of our new governance structure in terms of having that voice across the committees. So I'm very grateful for those updates and opportunities for you to be involved in the conversations shaping some of that policy. I'm going to move to agenda item 8, which is the CPCA Director's Update from Richard Kenny, Executive Director for Economy and Growth at the Combined Authority. Richard, good to see you as always, sir. Can I hand over to you for an update?
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. Yeah, I'm going to keep this relatively brief because I'm just aware we've got quite an agenda today, and a number of the items that I would normally perhaps brief on are covered. but obviously it'd be remiss of me not to mention the impact of the election on our combined authorities moving forwards. I think for some time now we've been thinking about what the election might mean for us and how we plan in terms of moving forward. And already, you know, we've got work streams around the first 100 days. I don't know if the mayor may want to say something about that, but also thinking about what a local growth plan might mean for us moving forward, and how does that relate to the current work that we have in play. Things like the work we've been doing in relation to shared ambitions. I was at a workshop earlier on this morning, going through our shared ambitions as an area, as a region, with wider stakeholders and wider partners, and also the work that we've been doing as a result of infrastructure planning in terms of the infrastructure delivery framework, which we will be talking about later on in the agenda, and also the work we did around UK REEF and the investment prospectus. And we're now looking at a wider list of investment opportunities and assessing those technically against specific criteria to get us into a state of readiness. But I think, you know, all I would say is it's a huge sea change. I think we're going to have to move quickly and with great care. But also I think it means a lot to the way the business board works, because I think what we did do quite recently was we had an informal business board session where we all came together face to face, and we had a real good conversation about the skills, the expertise, and the networks that each of the business board members brings to the table. And we have to mobilize that much more in terms of being very clear about what will really make a difference, because Cambridgeshire and Peterborough has a very different offer to the other combined authority areas. It has parts of its economy are very strong. It can do things fiscally. It can do things at pace. When you think about the sectors and the clusters that sit here, it can do things in a way that other areas can't move quite so quickly. And I think given mission government and the number one mission very much being around economic growth, and economic growth really being the basis for supporting everything else that the government wants to do, then I think that's really important for us as a business board to engage around. And I would like us to see informal working business boards now built in as a system, you know, as a systemic commitment. Every couple of months we must come together face to face as a business board. And I'm sorry if that's more meetings and more time commitments, but we'll work with the willing, and we'll be really grateful to get all of the board's input into those things as we roll forward together. A couple of other things I just briefly wanted to mention before I bring Nick in, but just to say, and I'm not sure if she's on this call, but Andrea Wood, the skills director, has now joined the combined authority. And I was just going to say, if she was on the call, to say hello, but if she isn't, we can park that. We might want to let Nick come in before we do that. But also to mention, we're also recruiting our sector champions. So we're now we've certainly got Paul, Emmanuel and Duncan with us, and we're in the processes of recruiting more widely as well. So we'll have a team of 6 overseen by David Moore, our new director. And I think that will help us enormously in terms of making the most of our sectors and making the most of our economic clusters and growing the economy. So thank you very much.
Let me jump to Mayor Nick first before waiting.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to follow on from Richard there. It's just to use this opportunity to say how things have significantly changed in my perception and how we have been approached from central government in the last 72 hours. Tomorrow is the first time I will walk Downing. In fact, the first time I've ever been to Downing Street, invited along with all the Metro mayors for a breakfast meeting with Keir before he actually goes to the States. And for those who had an opportunity to see how he presented what you referred to as, Richard, as mission government, I almost spat my tea out when he made the announcement he was going to be meeting the mayors before he went to America, because that quite wasn't, I mean, nice to be invited, but it showed very clear demonstration that the channel of the economic plan has combined authorities and mayoral combined authorities right at the heart of it. I mean, there may well be much more devolution, but it's that moment, and I want to just invite everybody to kind of, you know, to kind of focus on this, because we are lucky enough to be at the front of the queue here when it comes to looking at how to deliver improvements in the economy. And that's obviously working with public, private sector, but also across different areas within the combined authority, but across public areas. So be it the Department of Health, the Department of Education, the Department of Transport, Department of Agriculture. There is a real narrative. What has been put down at the very early stage is that we want to break down barriers between those sectors that are in central government and hand over, hopefully with significant monies coming with it over a longer period. So there's an actual a settlement that's not just on a kind of short-term basis, of one to say we are going to invest in our regions. And kind of Richard did allude to that, is that we are unique in that we're a little bit geographically away from the bulk of the sort of more obviously metro mayor areas. And we also, with the exception of maybe the west of England and possibly the very north, the Thumbrian combined authorities, we have a much higher proportion of rurality within the kind of makeup of our population. And as such, I see ourselves as a trailblazer going forward. Now, that there are obviously within this call specialists in all areas, but there is a particular opportunity with the unique structure of our region to kind of utilise the opportunity going forward. And I just want to reiterate, it has been good to meet those members who've been along to the thematic committees, those particularly who first new to the business board. And I just want to reiterate that if you have, you know, obviously I know Al, we have regular catch-ups, but my door is always open also if anybody wants to just check into me directly through the mayoralty, obviously not making sure that Al knows about it, but I'm more than happy to kind of share and talk and make this a two-way thing. But please be reassured that as your representative from the business community, Al and me are in each other's pockets more and more, and it's something I actually enjoy and I've benefited from. So I was really just to kind of give you the idea that I'm very enthusiastic going forward, not because of the result, but because of what actually was said in terms of devolution going forward and what's been promised by central government.
Thank you for that, Nick, and from Richard. I think there's lots of positives, and those two things I think really align at the moment. One of the things I think the business board members have been saying for some time now is we're really keen to see more opportunities that we can add expertise and support to. And as Richard alluded to, we've got a parallel channel, which is about potentially bringing opportunities to the table based on our networks that we have available. And where there's opportunity, we need to definitely demonstrate we can react quickly and seize those opportunities within this region. I will also say to reassure you, Richard, whilst I know we've had a few conversations so far today around time commitments, I think to a person, the business board have been very keen on more personal meetings rather than remote meetings. So I suspect you will not find any resistance to an opportunity to come together to shape insights and ideas. And I would fully encourage that with the caveat of a bit of advance notice. So thank you for that. And I appreciate your update. I am now going to move on to the most exciting topic, of course, which is the finance delivery and monitoring section. And Rob Emery, the Assistant Director for Finance, is going to talk us through the budget and performance report for this meeting. Rob, good to see you.
Afternoon, Al. Afternoon, Rob.
I'm going to pause, Rob. I've done my usual, which is I've jumped down 2 agenda items and missed one, which is really quite important. So before anybody reminds me, I've got it out the way quickly, but I apologize. I'm going to back up one because one of the things that we discussed and I was really keen to introduce in the business board as part of that outward facing was to make sure that we could bring in updates from the different constituent authorities across our region and make sure we could align with some of their strategic priorities. And I'm really pleased to, hopefully he's on the call, to welcome Nick Carter to our meeting today. Nick is the Service Director for Growth and Regeneration at Peterborough City Council, and he's going to talk through some of their key priorities which could be of interest to us. And in future meetings, we'll be bringing representatives from the different councils into this conversation. So I'm just checking, Nick, if you are on the call.
Al, it's Tom Hennessy here from
Hi, Tom.
City
Well, it's lovely
Council.
to
Hello.
see you. Are you covering for Nick for this call?
I am. I'm afraid that Nick had to give his apologies and that I've been asked to stand in his stead and provide an update on the draft economic growth strategy, which is part of Nick's remit in the growth and regeneration team.
Well, you're very welcome, Tom, and a very able alternative you are indeed. So I'm very grateful for you coming along. So can I hand over to you to just talk through?
Sure, no problem. I've been advised I've got about 20 minutes. I don't know if that's fits with you,
right.
Chair.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. In that case, I will share my screen, take you through a few slides if that's okay, and then happy to take any questions afterwards. So bear with me while I get that. Okay. I'm being advised that the host has disabled screen sharing. Dom, do you want me to send through the presentation to you quickly, or?
Tom, I've just amended the access. If you try again, you should be able to share now.
Fantastic.
But Tom, it would be good if we could circulate the presentation, post meeting as well. Thank you.
That's not a problem. Thank you. Okay, hopefully you should be able to see that. Yep, yeah. Great, thank you. I'll try and make that full presentation mode. Hopefully that's a bit better as well. Okay, so I think first of all, the important thing to say is that this is a draft economic growth strategy at this time. It's not been through Peterborough City Council governance processes, so please do treat it with a certain degree of confidentiality. It's still a work in progress, but we're hoping to get that signed off by September at Cabinet. I think the first place to start is why we're looking at putting together an economic growth strategy. As you know, hopefully Peterborough has a renewed emphasis on economic growth and regeneration with the formation of the growth and regen team under Nick Carter, and with this being particularly close to the heart of our chief exec, Matt Gladstone. It's one of the first things he did when he came in, and I'm very pleased to say that we've had a lot of support from across the political spectrum for it as well. I have discussed this with our cabinet member, so he's aware of where we're up to with this, and we've also done some socialisation with members of the business community, not least through the bondholder network. But why do we think we need an economic growth strategy for Peterborough? Well, it's one of the fast growth cities, one of the 5 under the Volterra report, along with Cambridge and obviously Milton Keynes, Oxford and Norwich. We're very pleased to be in that illustrious group. We've got a £1 billion regeneration programme for the city centre, which is coming along at pace at present, and the heart of that really is the Peterborough Station Quarter regeneration platform, but also obviously ARU Peterborough, which has been a fantastic addition.
Tom, can I just stop you quickly, because I've noticed you said this is supposed to be confidential. You do realise this is being live streamed on Zoom?
Okay, yes.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure, because you said it was confidential, and if it is confidential, then I guess we have to go into exempt sessions. Sorry, I couldn't get myself off mute, and so that's why I'm interrupting you. So if there's anything that you think shouldn't be in the public domain, now's your chance to hold off.
I think we should be fine, to be honest.
Okay.
But I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Rena.
But yeah, that's appreciated. Award-winning university there, 42 minutes from London, so perfectly placed to both serve as a commuter community, but also as a destination for investment located close to London, and recently a whole string of recognition of the progress that we've made in the city, and with in particular reference to the entrepreneurial spirit that we have in the city of Peterborough. And we really need to harness and build on these strengths and these opportunities and make sure, for example, when we're looking at the £1 billion regeneration programme, that we are leveraging that as much as possible to deliver as much economic impact from that as possible in an inclusive and sustainable manner. And that really is at the heart of this economic growth strategy. I think it's important to say as well that we also have challenges in the city. I think it's well recognised that our wages are lower than regional and national averages, although they are increasing at quite a rapid rate in comparison. They're still below where we would like to see them. We have below average qualifications, particularly higher level qualifications in the city. Again, we're catching up with regional and national averages, and ARU Peterborough will be a fantastic addition to that. There's been some great work being done by University Centre Peterborough, of course, over the last decade or so, which has contributed to improvements there as well. We do have high levels of insecure work in the city, with a lot of agency work, 3 times the national average there. Our carbon intensive businesses are growing, and particularly around land transport, logistics, warehousing. That's something that we need to be cognizant of when we're considering, our net zero targets, not just as a local authority, but as a city as well. We are more susceptible to economic shock because of the nature of industrial makeup, and so diversifying that will be an important part of this strategy. And again, low levels of new economy, knowledge intensive businesses. So that's where we will get the higher skilled, higher paid jobs that are more international in their outlook and therefore more protected from national and local economic shocks. We also have a very young population, which has fantastic benefits. But we do have reasonably high levels of youth unemployment. So with a wave of young people coming through over the next decade at much higher levels than we see at regional and national levels, because of the amount of young families that have been attracted to the city, we need to make sure that we're prepared for that, so that that youth unemployment is dealt with. And likewise, we've seen very high levels of migration into the city over the past decade, past 20 years. 13% of the current population arrived in the UK in the last 10 years. That's about 89% of the growth of the population of the city. And whilst that does bring fantastic benefits to the city, a lot of those new arrivals do tend to coalesce around the central and northern wards, where we also see low levels of skills and high levels of deprivation. So ensuring that everybody that lives in our city is able to benefit from the economic growth of our city is absolutely essential. It's essential from a moral perspective, I believe, but also from a local authority perspective and a service management perspective, and making sure we're financially sustainable into the future as well. So the vision for the city for the economic growth strategy is laid out for you here. It's a city of opportunity and an opportunity for all, as I have been explaining. Sustainability and inclusivity at the heart of this. We're looking at, maximising the impact of that regeneration, making sure we've got the right infrastructure there to support our economy, our businesses and our residents into the future, making sure that we're innovative and that our businesses are able to be innovative. And really, we want to push for that high level knowledge intensive economy, building on our own strengths that we have around manufacturing, engineering, digital, and agriculture and agritech, as was referenced by the Mayor just earlier as well. So very pleased to hear about that as a focus. Because we are seen as a city, I think, very much, but we need to recognise as well that within the unitary authority of Peterborough, we do have a big swathe of rural communities, and obviously we are a city in the heart of a rural area with fantastic links to those rural communities and to our agriculture historically. So there are 5 key areas that we're looking at for the strategy. They are sustainable and inclusive. I've already covered. There are 2 of them. Being an attractive city to come to for investment purposes, but also to live and to work and to visit. Being diverse and innovative. And well connected. So there are 5. And the approach that we've taken in this economic growth strategy is to have 5 game-changing interventions, 1 for each of those areas. You'll see those there. So within innovation and diversity of the economy, we've got the innovation partnership. Within connectivity, we have the ambition to bring an international rail station to the city as part of the station quarter regeneration. As far as sustainability is concerned, we're looking at the PIRI infrastructure project, which is a heat network and direct wire connections from my energy from waste facility. In terms of attractiveness, it's about development of a city centre development framework, making sure that we're bringing the right type of investment forward at the right time. And from an inclusivity perspective, it's about leveraging our ability to promote positive business practices through a business rates relief pilot that we'll be looking to start within the city. But above all of those, and overarching, is Peterborough City Council taking a real lead in this and being seen to take a lead in it by becoming a real anchor institution in the city, looking at how we use our own levers through procurement and planning and our other services to drive forward really positive growth in the city, but also to work with our other anchor institutions, so further and higher education institutions, the health service institutions, and others within the city, to make sure that we, as the public sector, are again leading the way in creating strong positive growth in the city. Beneath those 5 game-changing initiatives, there are obviously a range of other activity, some of which will be driven forward by the council, but much of which we'll be looking to deliver in partnership, obviously with the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority, but also with the private sector, with some of those other anchor institutions, and with national and international support as well. So you can see the 5 thematic areas there, the 5 priority areas laid out, each with a series of initiatives highlighted beneath those. I won't go through those individually, as that will take too long, but I will circulate these slides afterwards. I'll just leave it up for a minute or so for you to have a quick scan of that, should any of it prick your interest in particular. I think what's interesting as well about our approach to this, the development of the strategy, we've actually been working with a consultancy, Volterra, who put together the Fast Growth Cities report that was very successfully received last year. They obviously know the city well already, having done a lot of research, but they were really keen to work with us in quite an innovative approach to the strategy itself. So on the basis that all forecasts are wrong, but somewhat useful, to you know, slightly butcher another phrase, what we've looked at here is a scenario planning approach to the development of this. So what we've not done is say, right, if we do X, Y, and Z, then we are going to achieve, you know, this level of jobs growth and this level of GVA growth in the city. Because I think what we've all seen over certainly the past 5 years, if not longer, obviously since the financial crisis, is that we're living in a more and more uncertain world with lots of macroeconomic challenges ahead of us. And what we wanted to do is develop an economic growth strategy that was adaptable to those scenarios, that will provide us with the tools that we need to recognize the challenges that are coming down the line to us, and to be able to adapt our delivery approach in response to that. And so that's what we've done. Volterra developed 4 scenarios for us of varying positivity, looking at a very positive scenario as the first, but also looking at quite a negative scenario as the fourth, but with a range of different ones in between, and also a range of performance indicators that we can look at and constantly monitor to see which direction we're going in, and again to kind of reprioritize potentially delivery on the basis of trying to change direction in line with achieving the vision that I set out at the beginning. So the first scenario we're looking at is as a resilient hub for innovation. This is the positive scenario that we'll be aiming for. It's quite wordy. Again, I won't go through this in detail or read it to you, but you'll be able to have a look at that afterwards. But it really is about all those things I was talking about earlier, making sure it's an inclusive city, a sustainable city, one that has a thriving economy based on innovation and building on our strengths that we have in the city. The second is a growing but divided city. And I think this is potentially the kind of the laissez-faire scenario, in that if we leave things as they are, we will potentially see a greater divide in who is benefiting and who isn't benefiting from growth in our city. At the moment, what we're seeing is quite healthy, positive GVA growth in the city, and relative good growth in productivity at certain points over the last decade. What we've not seen is that translating into the levels of wage growth, certainly not up until very recently. But we want to make sure that whilst we see good positive business growth and economic growth in the city, that it's the people within the city that are benefiting from that as well. But this really looks at more investment in technology and less of that positive economic impact on the ground. This community-centric balanced transition is one where we're looking at quite a slow and steady economic growth profile, but actually because of that, what we're seeing is high levels of community cohesion in the background and a real focus on the green side of the economy. Lots more focus on increased sustainability, better transport, so slower economic growth, but more emphasis on quality of life. And the fourth scenario really is that negative scenario that we will certainly be trying our very best to steer away from. And that's where we're not attracting the kind of levels of investment that we want, both capital investment into our regeneration programme, but also into the city's businesses, that our residents are getting more and more left behind. And obviously this also has a negative financial impact on the local authority. This is not obviously an aspiration by any stretch of the imagination, but being aware of these potential scenarios, being able to recognise ahead of time when we might be able to identify that we're moving in that direction, whether due to local or macroeconomic factors, and adjusting course appropriately is really important to make sure we're delivering success. And then just a final slide there, that's really to have a little synopsis of all of those, looking at the four key areas that we look to measure. We've got a number of performance indicators underneath each of those, but how they rank within each of those scenarios. So for example, in the balance scenario, you can see, as I say, economic diversification is fairly low, as is technical adaptation, but environmental sustainability and societal inclusion is higher. Whereas scenario one, we're performing really well on all of those key measures. So that's the approach we've taken. They are our five thematic priorities, with a number of interventions identified under those. We do have a comprehensive action plan that is also part of this economic growth strategy, but obviously limited time. I wanted to give you a higher level overview, but open to taking any questions. So I'll stop sharing now, if that's okay.
Right. Thank you, Tom. Really appreciate you sharing that. I'm going to see if there are any hands for questions. And whilst I'm waiting, I believe Sam has a question. Sam, please dive in.
Thank you very much for that. Now, I personally don't know Peterborough as well as I should do, but when you look at it in terms of what sectors, are we really going to push? I mean, it's hard to push more than really one or two sectors to really go there. Is there somewhere where Peterborough is going to be known for a particular thing where you think, we as business board members could strand, value? Is it green? Is it life sciences?
I think we want to make sure that this is aligned with the combined authorities strategy as much as possible. So our key sectors really do align predominantly with the combined authorities, and that's advanced manufacturing and materials. Peterborough has a very strong history with regards to manufacturing and engineering, and we really want to make sure we continue to support that as much as possible. That does lead into other areas. So obviously, we know that Cambridge has a fantastic reputation for life sciences, and a lot of that is based on the very high level research that's done in and around the city and with the university. That's not something we can replicate within Peterborough, but building on our manufacturing heritage, we can look at so the technology that goes alongside that, and look for opportunities to collaborate there, looking at the biotech and medtech side of things as well. As I alluded to earlier, agriculture is an important part of the wider area. I know that the university is certainly looking at agritech as a key sector going forward. That sector is going to be facing a large number of challenges, from an environmental perspective, but also legislative as well, coming down the line. So we want to make sure that we're supporting that, and of course digital as well, which has impacts for kind of digital native companies, so those that are providing digital services and products, but also as far as increasing productivity across the whole gamut of our sectors. So digital will be a key focus as well.
Super helpful, thank you.
Thanks for sharing that, Tom. And it's kind of something that's, I think, has been happening for a while now, a focus on those strands that align quite nicely with the CPCA sector priorities. So it's good to see those growing, and that they also align with a lot of the course provision that's coming through in terms of the skills to make sure we've got the right workforce moving forward. So that's really helped to see. Mike, did you want to jump in?
Sure. Given my background, I guess it's a question I'd like to ask. In terms of, you mentioned incubators and accelerators and innovation centres, in addition to the university and the council, are others coming in to take a lead in these initiatives?
Yes, we are seeing some investment in that area at the moment. I'm currently talking to an outfit that's taken over an industrial area, an industrial building, to subdivide that up and look at incubation for kind of startup businesses within the kind of the maker space, as it were. But we also have other fantastic long-standing facilities in the city in that vein, such as Peterborough Workspace. And we have Alia in the city, obviously, and others. We also have some Shared Prosperity Fund money to help support a digital incubator that we'll be hopefully be able to talk more about in the very near future. But that's certainly something that we'll be looking to attract in greater levels to the city, and personally I believe that the development of the Station Quarter, with its close links to London and the tech centres down there, provides a great opportunity as well.
But this isn't just about workspaces, it's about what an accelerator actually does and what it means and how it invests in the companies.
Yes. And we will be having conversations with outfits like that, and certainly that is the purpose of the Shared Prosperity Fund money that we've got, is to work with other third parties to deliver those types of services. That will be that's not located physically in any one space, but will be more of an accelerator program, looking at giving a leg up to those early stage digital businesses, but also, as I say, working with businesses who are non-digital native to help adopt digital technologies to improve productivity.
Sounds like there might be an opportunity, Tom, should the team at the right time feel helpful to reach out to some of the business board members who have experience and potentially contacts in that space. Sounds like you're already on a journey, but I think it's, again, our overarching role is to try and enable all of the regions within the CPCA, and where there's an opportunity to perhaps help with that, then I think bringing your plan and the growth strategy to this group is to make sure that where there's opportunities for experience and support, that could be extended through. We've got a couple more hands up. Rebecca, who I know has been involved in Peterborough Bits for many years, and Charlotte in the same vein.
Thanks, Alan, and thanks, Tom. As interested in the scenarios and knowing Peterborough as I do, I can very much see how actually all four of them could happen in the future. And I know you've had limited time with us today, but is there a kind of a high level action plan that the council has for itself and partners to sort of drive towards scenario 1 rather than scenario 4, so that I think you used the term laissez-faire with scenario 2, and I think you know, without us all working together on some of these things, it could quite easily happen. And I think it's important that, you know, all of us in the business board are aware of those things, so we can support and help, as Al's already outlined. I don't know whether that's something that you could share in future or you want to comment on now.
Yes, absolutely. There is quite a detailed action plan, certainly to drive you know, the results of this work in the most positive direction. And I think coming back to Al's point, but also to yours there, absolutely, this is not something that the council deliver by itself. This is something that, you know, we will need to work in partnership with others to ensure that we're achieving the maximum impact. I'd be very pleased to share that action plan with you. As I say, it's in a draft stage at the moment, and I'd just like to check back at base with exactly the timings for the sharing of that, given the governance cycle. But I think, you know, the sooner the better as far as getting any input from partners such as yourselves is concerned. You know, probably before that goes through the governance process, in case there's anything, you know, we can identify to help improve that.
Thanks, Tom. And Charlotte, who already has a role linking in with business activity in Peterborough and, of course, the broader region in her Chamber's role as well. Charlotte, do you want to dive in?
Yeah, thank you, Alan, and thank you, Tom. I know we've been closely aligned, especially on the skills piece of work. And just given your vast experience, especially working in Peterborough, are there things that you could grab onto that you think could enable a much closer partnership between Cambridge and Peterborough? Because I think for me, it feels more important than ever that we tell the tale of one very amazing united region that is its own sort of supply chain, ideas coming out of Cambridge, but then they're able to be manufactured in Peterborough and the supporting economies around and in between. But is there anything still that you think we could do to, you know, really make sure that those two hands grip each other tightly?
I think it's just ensuring that we're building on the relationships that we already have and strengthening those to a certain extent. I've talked about some of the strengths. Yeah, I know that you're well aware of them yourself, of Peterborough, particularly around manufacturing. We also have a burgeoning, you know, digital economy here in the city, and obviously, you know, there are fantastic assets in Cambridge, such as the Institute for Manufacturing, TWY, Cambridge Wireless, and many others that I'm sure would add value to Peterborough's ecosystem. You know, that we could help support the businesses within Peterborough, utilising the skills and knowledge of some of those organisations. But also, I think you alluded to it a little bit there as well. You know, the cost of doing business in Peterborough is, I think, significantly less than in Cambridge. We have more space. We're developing a new local plan at the moment, which is bringing forward and identifying new industrial land. So if we are able to get some advanced manufacturing activity on those, building on the strengths that we have in the city, but also, you know, supporting the work and the innovation that's coming out of Cambridge, then I think that's something that will only benefit us all.
Thanks, Charlotte, and thanks, Tom. I think there's quite a few takeaways. First and foremost, I really appreciate you making time to come and share with us, Tom. One of the things I think in advance of this was recognizing there is an evolution of our economic growth plans and strategic plans, our being the CPCA, and it's really, really important to make sure that that reflects the key projects and priorities of the constituent regions. So, you know, one of the things I think is a really important action plan, and I'm sure much of this is already happening, is to make sure from Richard and David's perspective that we make sure that as we're looking at the economic priorities and planning that we have within the CPCA, that we have a constant validation of some of those key ones that are on the radar for you, as well as other regions, so we don't end up with, the best will in the world, lots of different strategic plans that are all intended to align, but there's more risk that they may not join up in the middle. And I know we already have linked with Charlotte having a role on business board and from a Peterborough perspective to try and connect through on some aspects, but clearly there are some other aspects in terms of the Peterborough plan where, as we're going to come onto an agenda item with Jim, we already align and collaborated really closely from a UK Reef perspective and make sure that there's a joined up voice on that. And whilst I think we've actually come a long way in the last year in terms of a joined up voice, I'm all for more, particularly when I know some of the business board members have got some experience that it can certainly not hurt to try and see where they can support the ambitions. And as a proud Peterborean, I shall be first in the queue to say whatever we can do to help, I would always want to. Anna, please dive in.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Tom, thanks so much. That was a great presentation. I'm looking forward to getting the slides through. I was kind of desperately trying to make notes through a lot of that because it's really, really helpful and really positive and exciting. I think I would want to reiterate what Alice said, because right across our region, we've got so much potential capacity. And I'm thinking about what we're able to do if we're able to really align everything at a point where we're hearing about the increased importance of combined authorities. This could be really exciting, and there's a real potential for us to be supporting each other right across the region and to be drawing in that kind of leverage that, and we've heard from Nick already, you know, he's there meeting the Prime Minister tomorrow morning. I mean, I think it's a really powerful opportunity for us to be putting that clear united message across. So thanks so much, and I really look forward to how we can link everything together across our region to make sure that the whole region benefits from its successes and supports each other really effectively.
Thank you.
Tom, thank you again for joining the meeting. Nick, you wanted to jump in? Apologies. You're on mute, sir.
Apologies. It's just to follow on from Anna, and the way things work out with these meetings, as I'm told, is that there's a few things that are kind of specific asks that you might have an opportunity to highlight in terms of the direction of travel. I just wanted to reiterate for Tom, but also I think it's important in this thing about alignment with combined authority thinking. There is obviously a next stage with regard to the Anglia-Ruskin University phase 4, which is this idea of the sort of green skills and the however you want to describe it, which is something, to be fair, was already on the agenda with the previous incumbent as the MP, and is one that in the bit by bit we have kind of championed at the combined authority. I mean, I may have missed it, Tom, but I think the fact is we will continue to champion that, and I'm assuming the City Council, having already done it over many years, would continue to want to do that. I guess just to reiterate that point, if you want to come back on that.
No, you're right, Nick. I didn't specifically mention it. It's in there as one of the bullets underneath the sustainable element, I believe, on that slide. But 100%, I mean, that is such a major opportunity for not only the city, I think, but for the combined authority region as a major kind of strategic kind of multiplier for bringing in new skills and investment and really driving forward that kind of green technology cluster around Peterborough and the combined authority area. So absolutely.
Chair, if I could just come back on that, I think that maybe goes back to the first question that Sam made. You know, is there something that we could be particularly kind of recognised as Peterborough as a city? And I have great faith that if we line things up properly, make the right asks at the right time, and then spread that messaging over different manufacturing, other technology areas. And to go back to other points that I think Charlotte made about linking in with, it was Michael. It was linking in with the idea of spin outs potentially coming from Cambridge, but actually launching and then pushing into Peterborough with the other expanded capacity, maybe into the Fens. To be fair, it's literally what every other mayor is doing. But I just think we've got a real winning opportunity because we have been at the forefront working with the City Council and working with AR University about this narrative. We've got the space physically there to do it. That's where maybe a lot of attention could be made, and I think where particularly the combined authority lines up. But again, the business board may have other ideas that they want to feed in.
Thank you, Nick. And I'm just going to hand over to Anna before we wrap
Yeah,
up.
super quick, but I noticed this morning that we've had those of us who are on the board have got confirmation that we're at Peterborough College for our next board meeting. So that gives us a really excellent opportunity potentially. I don't know if we'll get the chance to look at the Centre for Green Technology at that time as well, but also amazing work happening there. So really exciting to look at what can happen in the green sector in Peterborough.
Excellent. Thank you, Anna. And just to confirm for business board meeting members, I do have a standing monthly call with Matt Gladstone as well. So we try to make sure there's a closed loop all round on activities happening in Peterborough. Tom, thank you again. Really appreciated. And once you've had an opportunity to check through the various bits and pieces and are happy to share that to members, I'm sure that will be appreciated, and look forward to continuing the conversation at a subsequent business board meeting. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time.
Okay, Rob has had significant advance warning of this agenda item, given my flow that I managed to mess up. So we're now going to head over to Rob and the budget and performance report.
Good afternoon, board. I promise to be nice and quick so you can get on to the, I wouldn't say more interesting items on the agenda because I'm from finance, but I know some others may have their opinion. This is quite a quick one anyway, because it's just really setting out your budgets for the year, and the next round of reports will start reporting on actual delivering forecasts against them. So it really is just a high level overview of the Economy and Growth Directorate's business plan. So starting from the top of the report, in terms of income this year, there's just under £5 million of income anticipated for Economy and Growth, specifically for its area. The vast majority of that is relating to the UK SPF, so the Shared Prosperity Fund, and its Rural Prosperity Fund equivalent. There's then a small drawdown from some historic growth funding, and that's about it in terms of the income specifically for the Directorate. That money is, of course, topped up by the Combined Authority Board. So you can see in Table 2 that the total planned expenditure on a revenue side is about £8 million for the current year. And so you can see the Combined Authorities putting money into that area of its business as well. There are a couple of larger items of expenditure in there. About half of it is, unsurprisingly, the spending side of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund programme, which comes to an end in March 2025. Obviously, with a new government, we wait with great anticipation to hear what potential successors there are to such programmes. The other large items on there are split between staffing-related budgets. So there's the new economy team and Team Cambridgeshire, so the expansion of the Growth Hub in there as well. And the balance are project delivery budgets. The two big ones in there are the devolution work stream. So both parties before the election, and obviously Labour's now won, had lots to say about believing that mayoral combined authorities are the way forward for devolution in England. So we've got some money set aside there to support Richard in developing and negotiating a new devolution settlement that we hope will be on the cards. The other largest revenue expenditure there is a £1 million contribution to the Greater Cambridge Social Impact Fund. Turning then to a capital programme, it's quite a lot larger, as tends to be, because the combined authority as a whole is capital rich and revenue poor. So we've got just under £22 million planned to be spent this year. There's a few big ticket items in there. The first is the Business Growth Fund, which unfortunately is listed across two different lines because it's under an old name and its current name. The GrowthWorks Additional Equity Fund was the name when it was originally planned, because it was going to be delivered through the Growth Company. So those two lines will be combined in future and just be called the Business Growth Fund, with a combined budget of a little over £5 million this year. The work on launching that's ongoing now. It'll be delivered across two different partnerships, one with FSE focusing on business support, and a smaller one with ALIA focusing on third sector and charities. There's two items in there that will be reported in a more obviously separate way going forward. That's the Strategic Growth Fund and the Levelling Up Fund. So whereas the rest of all those budgets are specific projects or programs, those two are new thematic funds that the Combined Authority Board set up through the medium-term financial plan in January. So instead of being allocated to specific projects, they're allocated to a specific area the Combined Authority wants to put money into. And I know the directorates, and Richard may be able to talk specifically about the Business Growth Fund, are working up how to create a call for projects or something of that ilk to encourage the market to bring forward ideas, at which point the funding can then be allocated out from those funds to specific projects. The Business Growth Fund, for a reminder, because you can only see the in-year allocation here, is £20 million over this and the next 3 years. The Levelling Up Fund is 10. So there's some chunky allocations in there to come forward for new ideas over the next few years. And obviously you'll hear more from me over the next sort of 6 months as we look forward to planning the next round of the medium-term financial plan and react to whatever comes out of Whitehall, which is exciting times for us all. That's it from me on your budget, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it. As you said, it's a fairly small item on the report, really, in terms of a statement of where we are at the moment. The recommendation is purely for the business board to note this. So can I, in the absence of any questions, get agreement from everybody that we agreed to note the paper? Nobody's saying otherwise. So thank you. Appreciate that, Rob. We're going to move on to a post-UK reef update. I think all of us have had conversations about the UK reef event that the Combined Authority, working with the constituent councils, have successfully delivered. And I know some of us who were involved in attending thought it was certainly a really excellent introduction to UK reef and a very well delivered event by the CPCA team. But Jim Cunningham, Interim Director of Delivery, is here to give us an update. And having spoken to Jim last week, I know he's very keen for any of you to share any football analogies, given that we're currently through the European Championships. So Jim, I'm looking for a hat trick of feedback and great ideas from you. So please, over to you. You're on mute, sir. That's an own goal.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, the challenge that I've faced over the last couple of weeks since the European Championships started has been unmercilessly wound up by colleagues, particularly my chief executive, about the performance of Scotland. And I keep watching this English team draw every game and yet get to the semi-final. So it's good. It's good fun. Anyway, on a more serious note, the presentation that I'm going to take you through is essentially a kind of preamble to a paper and presentation that I'm taking to the Combined Authority Board in 2 weeks' time on UK reef. And so I'm taking it past the business board today for comment and then to the leader strategy meeting on Wednesday. But what I wanted to say, and it was that, given that as Al alluded to there, that the business board is a part of the CA governance that I've probably spoken to most closely about our plans for UK reef. There may be an element as you go through the presentation saying, "Oh no, not again, Jim," because you've heard so much of it before. But if you can take it in the spirit that what I want to do is gather feedback, get input, and talk about our experience for this year and how we shape up in terms of promoting ourselves externally in the future. George, you've got a copy, so I'll run through the slides, and then if the technology allows, I'll quickly show a short video that tries to pick up on our experience there. George, if you can put it in slideshow, yeah, brilliant. And just go into the first slide, please. So why did we go in the first place? And this is something that that I rehearsed with the business board some time ago. That it was the opportunity for us to present and showcase the region on a national and international platform, just demonstrate our partnership working, and demonstrate, I suppose, local leadership and de-risking in making the investment in our pavilion there. So that was the logic in going there in the first place. George. So detailing our inward investment opportunities, embedding our Team Cambridgeshire and Peterborough approach. I'd like to stress that, because I think it was Anna made the point when talking to Tom earlier about the Peterborough strategy, is that sort of Team Cambridgeshire and Peterborough approach being vital to our success in collectively working together to promote the region, and how we can work together. When we look at comparisons internationally, and people talk about Silicon Valley and the Boston experience, and there's areas of hundreds of miles between the north and the south and those geographies, and yet we're talking about a 35-mile from Cambridge to Peterborough, if it's as much as that, in terms of the area that we're operating in. So let's make the most of it on that Team Cambridgeshire and Peterborough geography, and demonstrate that in the way that we go forward. The other big issue around UK Reef was the type of people that were going to be there, so a chance to build a reputation with government ministers, civil servants, and government agencies. And as Al and Andy will know, we even got a request from a former government minister if he could speak in one of our panels while we were up there. So we're obviously, we were making a bit of impression in getting our message across. But again, it was all about showcasing Cambridgeshire and Peterborough to the UK and the wider world. And I'll circulate these slides through George after the meeting. If we can go on to the next slide, George. So what did we do when we were there? We had the pavilion. We presented that unified approach. Each day, in an effort to draw people into the pavilion, we ran 2 core events. I'm going to give you a bit more detail on all of those on the next few slides. But the idea there was to bring people into the pavilion, and I think those on the call who were at the event will acknowledge that we were demonstrably successful in doing that. And again, all about giving a louder voice to the work of the combined authority, to the work of the partnership, to our region, and projecting that nationally. And I think that's an important theme for us to build on as we move forward. George. So some photographs from the event to give people a feel for what it was we were doing where we were there. So these are from the pavilion itself. But bear in mind, a lot of our time when we were there was out going around the other stands and pavilions and reaching out to partners and potential investors. So a lot of the stats that I'm talking about, today and in recent discussions are based on the traffic through our pavilion. But don't forget that we were receiving invites to speak on platforms with other partners. We were visiting other pavilions. They've been following through with us as well. So it's all part of that interaction and getting the Team Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, the combined authority area, actively promoted. George. So on we ran these events over the 3 days. The first event was the how do we further develop Cambridge, but with the community and at its heart. And I think I've said to some of you privately, that as the person that was kind of charged with organising our presence there. You know, I only started to enjoy myself about 10 to 10 on the first morning when people were queuing up to get into the pavilion, and it gave me some confidence that we had done the right thing, and you know, and we're able to crack on. And I think that gave us all a confidence boost for the rest of the week. Picking up on Tom's comments about the ambition around an international railway terminal, we promoted and projected that when we were there. The mayor was talking about the rurality of our economy and the opportunities that brings, and we had a very interesting session on agritech, which was chaired by Councillor Peter MacDonald from South Cambridgeshire District Council, again exemplifying that partnership approach. How can the UK science superpower grow sustainably? That was an event which Andy, among others, spoke at, but also the one that George Freeman, the former Innovation Minister, asked if he could speak at. So he came along and gave us his views on and his experience as well. And then on the Thursday, we focused on the Peterborough story, bringing that, you know, the university at the heart of the regeneration of the city centre, the Peterborough Station Quarter project, showing really good examples of how working collectively we can make really good use of external funding and use that funding to project more investment and attract more investment to Peterborough. And then the final session on the Thursday was around rebuilding our communities and restoring market towns, and Rebecca Britton of Urban and Civic and Darryl Chen spoke at that event, and again a lot of interest in that. And we also ran a few sort of fringe events as well. So one on women in local government, and great input from, in particular, you know, Councillor Conboy on that panel, supported by Michelle, our chief exec, and others. And then another one on young people and their role and how we can help grow their roles. Now, part of the deal with UK Reef when we took the pavilion was we were encouraged to bring, you know, under 25-year-olds with us as part of their experience. So we played that some into the discussion on the Rising Stars, but all about getting that really positive message across about what we were doing to promote the local economy. Can I have the next slide, please, George? And again, this is just a bit more detail about each of the panels, who was on them, who was speaking at them, and getting, you know, seeing that, if you can pick out the names there, you know, seeing that we were bringing in people who were external to our community, and we were also had people who were very active in our community in terms of promoting our area. So, you know, the Cambridge Phenomenon one had Councillor David, the leader of Cambridge City, Peter Freeman, the chair of Homes England, and the Cambridge Delivery Group, Jackie Sadek talking from a UK Innovation Corridor perspective, and you know, I touched on the speakers at the panel, the Agritech panel that Councillor MacDonald so expertly chaired. Can I have the next slide? And again, the Peterborough's got a big theme in this one. So the railway station event, which Al also spoke at, the levelling up in action story, and you can see, if you look, just as a real exemplification of that partnership, Tom Hennessy, in the bottom right corner there, you've got Ellie Evans from Voltero, who spoke about the Peterborough's regeneration strategy. And then again, the event which you know, Judith and Peter Freeman, Andy Williams spoke at on the role of the science superpower and how we develop that. And as I say, we also had George Freeman MP speaking at that. Can I have the next slide? Again, our Rising Stars, and the next one, George. Yeah, the Women in Local Government event. So, you know, all received very positively by the audiences who were there. And then what have we done in terms of learning from that? So, there were follow-up and reflection sessions in place with the partners. But what I can say, that, you know, very enthusiastic and positive feedback on the team Cambridgeshire and Peterborough approach. And I think one of the lessons we learned from our participation there is that we you know, the further development work needs to go into our investment pipeline, and you know, we're in a very good position at the moment, I suppose, given alluding to the conversations earlier with the mayor and with Richard when he was giving his update on the opportunity that we now potentially that's now potentially open to us in terms of the new government, and a new government looking at a greater devolution and potentially devolved powers, so that we've got the resources that may come to support that investment pipeline, and we need to work on the investment pipeline to ensure that we're in a position to capitalise that and to continue, you know, to develop the external promotion of our region. If I can have the next slide. Yep. So what we're doing, Rob has written to each of the delegates who attended or who visited our pavilion, and telling them that we'll be follow-up with from David Moore's team and from the constituent councils. So that's in place at the moment. The details of the visitors, you know, have been shared, and those contacts have been made. And the other thing that's happening is that people are also sharing the contacts that they made external to the pavilion when they were up there, and so that we can bring those into the fold as well, and monitor the impact that way. We've taken the confidence boost that was given from our presence to sort of put down for a pavilion next year. So we look forward to developing that. And I suppose where I would like us to be in I don't suppose I haven't aired this with anyone, but I've put it on the bullet point there that, you know, as we move forward, that whole thing about promoting our region, its assets to external audiences, appropriate events, becomes part of our role as a CPA, as part of our business as usual activities, and not something that we should unduly fret about doing. You know, so I think there's a real impetus to build on what we've been doing, and then finally, just to say that as we move forward, I'll be bringing further reports through CA governance in terms of the impact of what we've done, and in particular the specific follow-up to those and outcomes from that dialogue that we're having with the people who visited our pavilion when we were there. Okay, and if we make that the end of the slideshow, George, I don't know if you're able to.
Thank you, Jim.
Could George, there's a 1 minute 30 seconds video. Have we got time to quickly run through that, and then I can take questions? Or
we'll see whether George is able to share that, Jim.
Yeah, sorry, do bear with me. It's been a bit of a tricky one to play around with, but hopefully we can get this to work just fine. So just stick with me for a moment.
While we're waiting for you, George, I'll just say, Jim, I think one of the things which is harder, but the most important thing for the first year at UK Reef is just sort of signposting the additionality of bringing of the role of the CPCA, bringing those different constituent projects together. And one thing that I think is quite important is to think about what are in the future our measures of impact. Reef isn't an event you go to in year one and expect to be handed orders for things. It's about presenting us as a cohesive place that's a receptive and welcoming space for investment and growth. And so these are about slow burn, but medium-term ambitions about actually highlighting the region. So I think it'd be good for as we track through the year, as you've indicated, just to see how those different connections and contacts are fostered forward, and how that might shape or refine what we do for next year.
I think we should be ready, Chair. Sorry, Jim.
Okay, Josh. So I was just going to say, if you were struggling, we could leave it, because I was having some problems with it as well. That's why I sent it to my resident expert.
George, have a go. See whether you can showcase it, and in the background we'll get the popcorn ready.
Absolutely. Do let me know if you cannot hear the video. Hopefully it is set up to allow for that. But of course, if not, just do shout, because I won't be able to see anyone. but I'll play the video now.
Okay.
I'm Mayor Dr. Nick Johnson, the Mayor of the Combined Authority for Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. So we're here at UK Reef, 3 days of enjoyment, but 3 days where we can showcase how important Cambridgeshire and Peterborough is as an organisation, the Combined Authority. And what we've done is becoming a real team, joining up all the different authorities, pulling ourselves together and putting ourselves out into the UK market as the place to come and invest and actually to drive the UK economy. And it's the first opportunity that we've had to actually kind of demonstrate how clearly we have moved on as an organisation, as the voice for Team Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. Another observation is just how popular the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Pavilion has been. Quite clearly the message has got out there that this is a place that people want to hear about, what the opportunities are in terms of investment, and how actually the communities have been listened to and how we're driving through with initiatives and new ideas of how we're going to work together and really deliver for the community. The final thing I want to say is just a huge thank you for getting behind Team Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, for coming to our pavilion, getting involved and seeing what we really are doing for our area. We're so delighted to have you here and we think we're going to be back next year.
Thanks, George.
Thank you for sharing that, and a nice summary from Nick there on what was genuinely a really positive event. Nick, would you like to say a few more words?
No, that's the first time I've seen that. And I'm not, oh God. I would just say I think I've got it, but I'm sorry I said we think we'll be back next year. It should have sounded more positive at the end, so my apologies. But I think I'm happy with it, although I should have had my tie done up a bit more. But thank you, and thank you for the shock there. That was I'm not used. Wasn't expecting that.
Devil in the detail there, but I think when that was recorded, we probably didn't know for sure whether we were booking for the following year. So you can probably be forgiven. But collectively, you know, it's been a really positive event, and I think the most positive feature actually is the fact that we're not just moving on to next year, but we're being quite self-reflective and analysing what we did, what we could do better, and how we could build on those opportunities. But definitely a good starting point. So thank you, Jim, and all the people. I know there's a large team have all been working very hard to deliver on that. So yeah, and thank you to Richard as well, obviously. Okay, I don't see any other hands up.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Nitin. I apologise. Far away, sir.
Just following on from your point, Jim, when we have the first sort of results to sort of follow through on what you've got, what sort of timing? Because I think it's a long burn, but on the same basis, it can't go off your radar or our radar. So when do you think you're going to sort of see some impact, and what are you going to measure it? How are you going to measure it?
I think it'll be, you know, I might look to David or colleagues to come in, because, you know, the detailed follow-up sits with David and Steve and the team. You know, a couple of things that we'll do to complicate that, are not complicate it, complement it, are the production of an investor bulletin similar to the one that we do on a quarterly basis for members, and target the investor community, developer community through that. I think in terms of how do we measure success, then obviously we will be looking at, in the long run, the potential levels of investment, but in the short term, about the follow through with those individuals that we met there, and some of which have already, you know, followed through and we've had meetings with. But I don't want to sort of get into that anecdotally. But what we will do is, you know, how many people are we speaking to? How is that relation developed? And as I said, report back through the CA governance on that. So ultimately, it's about improving the perception, improving the impact of the combined authority in that investor and developer arena. It's about confidence building, and then ultimately it's about results, and have we secured any investment as a direct result of a partnership there. And a lot of it is about warming up those relationships, Nathan, as you would appreciate yourself.
Yeah, that's why I was saying it needs to be a
Yeah.
long burn in a process
Yeah.
that sort of keeps, because I mean, you guys have done that, but now you've got your day job. So
Yeah.
how's that going to filter into doing it on a regular basis and following? Because I think, the big benefit of doing it is also showing it to the outside world rather than just the UK, and chasing those guys are real key. And if you can win one or two of those, that will be really worth it. But otherwise, it's going to be a struggle to sort of show real value.
Yeah. Well, I think part of the value is about that, that confidence and opening doors and letting people know we're there. And it's, what if we're not there? And so I think there's a bit in this. It's about reaching out, about managing those relationships, about developing those relationships, moving forward.
Thank you, Nitin. Jim, I'm going to come to Charlotte and then Anna.
Thanks, Al. Thank you, Jim. And forgive me if I've just not got my finger on this detail. Have we yet analysed who the attendees and interested parties are? Have we got a demographic of those yet?
Yeah, we've got details of all of those, everyone who's visited the pavilion, and then we're going through that on the basis of, who's an investor, who's a developer, who's someone else we can learn from, and matching the contacts that way. So we've got detail. The other thing we also have access to is not just the people that came to the pavilion, but we've got access to everyone who was there. So there's specific follow-ups with the people who showed the interest in coming to us to speak to us. But something like a vehicle like the online investment newsletter can go out to essentially to everyone that was there, because people who attended UK Reef attended on the basis that their data would be exchanged and there perhaps would be follow up with them, and we've signalled that in any continue to signal that message in any correspondence that we've had with the delegates.
Anna, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, two things. First of all, incredibly well done. I was really disappointed not to be there. Some of you know I wasn't quite sure what I'd be doing after the local elections. So it wasn't possible to get myself booked onto it. And everything I hear was that it was fantastic and really, really helpful. So well done to everyone. I did just want to pick up slightly on Jim's point. I think it is brilliant that we're assessing the impact of how that works. I think it's also really important, and I'm confident this is what we are going to do, that we don't see that in a very formulaic way, because often the impact of these kind of events isn't in, we spoke to X number of people and made X number of contacts and followed through with Y number of people. It's also about the fact we were there, that people see us as part of that environment. We don't know what the impact might be on the people who didn't actually come and fill in a form or hand us their card. So can we just be sure as we look at the metrics on that we keep it really broad?
Yes.
Point well made, Anna. And can I just say, as one of a number of us who were there supporting, I'm also really conscious we have metrics about who came into our pavilion, but as has been alluded, there was a lot of us having cross-pollination with Oxford-Cambridge Partnership, other stakeholders. There were lots of sessions around particular vertical sectors, AI, planning, and other areas that we were involved in. So there's probably also some incremental value add, and probably the one I just also throw into the mix, not in any way to diminish the fact that we do want to track moving forward the tangible impact. I also think many of us saw that it was also a really positive accelerator. Having that commitment to Reef and a deadline was really quite useful to bring together that sort of cohesive across the region summary and make sure that we kind of got to a unified elevator pitch about how we pitch and present. And I think that's all part of the journey as well. I know there's been feedback externally from that external review of our ongoing improvements across CPCA, and I think all those things are ticks in the boxes as well, albeit marginal gains as we're adding those together. But I think that can't be diminished either. Okay, I'm conscious of time, and I know a couple of members of the business board do need to leave at 4:30. We have a couple more agenda items to go through. So if anyone has any further questions, can you say now? Otherwise, I'm going to move on to a quick summary from Steve Clark on the Strategic Funds Management Review, which is very much an update and summary that you'll have seen from your agenda packs. Steve, can I hand over to you?
Good afternoon, Al. Good afternoon, board. So yes, in the spirit of keeping it brief, I'll just pick out a few highlights from the report. This is the summary report that we usually bring you of various programs, whether we lead directly, whether we're a partner, or whether we are lead authority and delegating the work through. Just going through the report very quickly, there are 4 projects, if you like, that are not showing much, still spending to go in the LGF, the recycled LGF in item 2.2. They are Illumina Genomics. They're just looking at a revised partnership with the Sanger. So we're just holding back currently there to see what that looks like. Start Codon, the Life Science Accelerator. We're still on track. That has a long period of investing, so that one is still okay. The College of West Anglia Net Zero project, our money was always going to be drawn last, so the private sector money is being drawn first in terms of building the Net Zero Green Centre in Wisbech. So I expect that one may sit for a while before we see the first claims. The Ramsey Produce Hub, we have seen the first claim come in, although very small, but we will see that ramp up now across the year for that capital input into Ramsey. In terms of monitoring in section 3, there's a few things to sort of draw attention to. The monitoring that we've been undertaken, which is covered in Appendix B, you'll see that it's increased since the last report. There's 1,656 uplift of apprenticeships and jobs created, which is good because it contributes to the economic growth and our GVA. But also there was an uplift in new learners recorded from our various programs, so a plus 407 there. So that's positive. We will be sending round the whole digest of our monitoring. So the giant spreadsheet that we use, I've realised that for newer business board members, when we make references to these things and we have the chart, you don't actually see all the detail that necessarily sits behind that, and there are a lot of various metrics that we cover. So arranging for that to be sent round very shortly so you can see the breadth of monitoring that we do. Also in Appendix B, there's a case study on the Aerotron expansion, which is a project in Chatteris that we funded, albeit the award was, back in 2020. But with all these projects and all of our programs, the time for impact, it takes a little time and our monitoring goes on. But it's actually when you get further down the track that you start to see some of the interesting results of what we invested in. On Shared Prosperity Fund, Part 4, spend has increased. We're at 2.9 million spend, which is 76.8. That was at the end of June against. So that's still behind. We should be 100%. We're still a little bit behind, but we're very confident, having done the round robin with all of the projects and local authorities, that there are provisions now for push on all projects and spend, and there's plans. And you heard from Tom earlier, like the projects in Peterborough, they're very much behind them and there's a big push. So we will be looking at the end of, very shortly, at the end of this quarter, a bit of a review of some of those projects. And we're going to bring you another update report to the next business board meeting on SPF, so you can see exactly where we are. In terms of, you've heard from Rob earlier about the Business Growth Fund, so I don't think I need to repeat that. But we are taking an update paper to the CA board on the 24th this month, just a final update before we sign those contracts with Alia and FSE Group to get that mobilised. Market Towns phase 1 and 2 continues to go well. So that's good. I think the team will be bringing an update report further on, but we're seeing good spend still continue with phase 1, and it's profiled through to the end. And for phase 2, It's good to see that we're now starting to see some of the outputs from the phase 2 come to life, whether it's the enterprise hubs or the community-owned business, and the STEM roadshows highlighted in there. That the one in Wisbech recently for 6 weeks had an awful lot of interest and attention, so that's really good. In terms of I'll just finalise with the Innovate UK funding. So the Agritech Launchpad, where we're a partner alongside some of our neighbouring counties, and the first round awards are now public, and it's really good to see that of the 12 that were awarded, 4 of them are in our patch. So Bug Biome at Baverham, Sampler Limited on Cambridge Science Park, Autopicker, interestingly, who have changed their address from Cambridge to Peterborough. They're now operating from Peterborough, and Outfield Technologies, which is again Cambridge based. So very good there. Round 2 of that fund's been open and closed, and currently has had a high level of attention. So which is really interesting to see how innovation money is being sought. So 39 new SME size applications, and collaborative R&D's 33 projects submitted. So big demand for innovation type grant funding and grant monies being shown there. So yeah, I'll stop there in the interest of time and happily take any questions.
Steve, thank you for that summary. I'm really conscious Mayor Nick's been waiting very patiently. So Nick, can I hand over to you first of all?
It's a legacy hand.
Oh, okay, good. I'm relieved that I didn't miss you earlier on, so thank you for that. Are there any questions for Steve? I appreciate this is an update here. I'm conscious it was quite pleased to see that on quite a few of those, but the Market Town, obviously there's been a number of projects. Mayor Nick, Councillor Smith and myself attended in Chatteris event there with their new museum and community hub. There's actually quite a nice, I shouldn't say quite nice, you should watch it first, but there's a nice video from a tour that I did at Aerotronics a while back, looking at how that's been growing skills in the region. And I know there's an ambition collectively to make sure across all of these projects, we can encourage more business board members to go back and have a visit to some of the sites that we've supported and see where there's opportunities to learn lessons and find out how they've evolved and developed as part of our original plans. Nick.
Yeah, it wasn't a legacy hand. I just remembered what it was. It was just a point to Steve. I was at the thing today, Shared Ambition, sitting next to Representative Cower, and he happened to make a comment that the funding on the proposal there was announced, and I was surprised pre-election by the Anglia Water. So I was just that you made a comment that obviously the funding that we're holding is sort of would come in afterwards, and I wasn't completely sure that you were up to date with that, and or if you could maybe go and clarify that point, because as I say, I was with a representative of Cower, and he said the Anglia Water had signed it off last week and made some announcement, which I hadn't seen, but obviously if they are going on, then that means that we need to be thinking about releasing the funds in the course of time and also making more of a splash about that, no pun intended.
Will do. I'll follow up with that one. We'll do a check. I don't think it changes the position that they're planning to use the other funds first and claim ours second. But I take your point. We need to get on joint comms and also move ours forward if progress has started. So yeah, thanks for that tip off.
Thank you on that. And just a final point, which I'll perhaps on an action point, Dom, you could take forward, although I appreciate it probably links into comms. We have mentioned before about some of these projects where we've invested, we're revisiting, providing them with a CPCA plaque, and we want to do member visits. I am really keen that we can have a look regionally where they are and then approach business board members where it's most accessible so that we can have a broad church of feedback from those projects we've invested in. And I'd kind of like to make sure that we don't miss the opportunity to link in some business board members where we can on that, please.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're put together a hit list of projects.
That's probably not the term we want to use, but I
No. We're starting to put together a pipeline list of projects that we are going to target. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, any other questions? No. Okay, thank you, folks. We're now going to move to part 4 of the agenda, and we'll need to consider whether to exclude the press and public from this part of the meeting. I move that we resolve that the press and public be excluded from the meeting on the grounds that the next report contains exempt information under Part 1 of Schedule 12A, the Local Government Act 1972, as amended, and that it would not be in the public interest for this information to be disclosed. The public interest in maintaining the exemption must be deemed to outweigh the public interest in its publication. Do I have a seconder for us to move in this format, please? Thank you, Nitin. So confirm Nitin Patel as a seconder there. Okay, so at this point, the meeting will adjourn and the live stream will end. Oh, apologies, we need to take a vote first of all for this one and a formality. So can I have a vote, please, for all those in favours that we adjourn and take this meeting offline? Thank you. And are there any votes against? None. Okay, thank you for that. That vote is carried unanimously. So at this point, the meeting will adjourn and the live stream will end. Members and officers who are taking part in the exempt session can stay in the call. Everyone else present is asked